Hello, friends at Columbia. Good to be back again. I wish we could see you, but I have a good imagination and I can remember all of us sitting in the circles as we did for over 6 years. And I'm glad to be able to connect with you again in this way. Uh, I want to shout out to Chaplain Justin for enabling this to happen. And I want to encourage all of you to, if you have questions or comments or something you want to say to Walt or to me or to both of us, just write it down and get it to one of the chaplains, and they will get that to us, and we'll answer your questions or respond to what you have to say. So at least we feel like there's someone there on the other end listening. So we're going to continue with our meditation training today, and I will pass it over here to Walt. Walt, how you doing?
Doing well. Did you introduce yourself, Mr. S?
Mr. S. I'm Stephen
Mr. S.
Stephen Spiro.
And I'm
you know who I am.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Stephen. And good to imagine you guys watching the video. And I also am so glad that we have this opportunity to connect, at least in a one-way sense. And you know, I'm still remembering, still thinking about the guys in the group, and also maybe hopefully some guys that had been in the groups before but had to drop out because they had jobs or whatever, that maybe they have a chance to see us again. And guys that have not been in the group who are just kind of curious, checking this out, maybe with a little skepticism. That's okay. It's okay. This is all about telling you some techniques that have been very practical for us and life-changing, actually. But it's for you to try out. It's for you to experiment with, to see how they work for you. Because we're not in your situation. We're not in your background. Everybody's different. But they work for many people over the centuries. They work for many people. Anyway, today I'm coming in with a technique that actually it got popularized when the Navy SEALs, you know, the frogmen, the special forces, used this in their training. And it's called box breathing. You might think of it as visualize a square when you're breathing. It's a very simple technique, and it's meant to be used in the heat of the moment, when you need to calm down, when you feel that you're losing it and you need to be cool, calm, gather your thoughts. It's very simple and easy to remember. So we'll practice it right now. I'll explain it. What it is, you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, you exhale for 4 seconds, and you hold for 4 seconds. So 4 seconds are 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. So let's try this. Let's kind of, you don't have to be in any position. There are no other rules other than you're paying attention to your breath, and you're doing this, what's called box breathing, where you're imagining it as a square. So inhale for 4 seconds. Hold 4 seconds. Exhale 4 seconds. Hold 4 seconds. Inhale, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. Hold, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. Exhale, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. Hold. Inhale. Hold. So That's Navy SEAL box breathing. It's the kind of thing that you can do whenever to regain your calm, help get control of your thoughts. That you don't have to do that forever. You don't have to do it for a long time. They recommend 4 rounds at least. Sometimes people will get dizzy if they're breathing like this. If that happens, no problem. Just stop. No problem. Just, it happens. Don't give up on it if that happens, though, because it's not always the case. It depends on what your heart rate is and what your respiration is. I looked it up after, actually, I heard about this. A fellow in a SEG unit told me about this. He was a practitioner in martial arts, and we tried it out there. And then later I looked it up, and sure enough, actually Mayo Clinic did a study on this, and they found that it has a pretty immediate effect on your nervous system, the part of the nervous system that's automatic. Like, it does have an automatic calming effect. They also learned that it lowered people's temperature and blood pressure. So it's good for you. Might also be valuable. Some people have at times trouble breathing, COPD or something. This could be a fallback thing for that too. That's my little introduction to a quick fix in the heat of the moment, Stephen.
Okay, well, so expanding on this a little bit. So I tried, I was not familiar with this when you told me about it yesterday. And so I tried it this morning in my meditation as a meditation practice. The square, so I started here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, breathing in, holding 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out 1, 2, 3, 4. Holding 1, 2, 3, 4. And then beginning again 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I was doing this as a meditation, so my eyes were closed. And with my closed eyes, my eyes were actually moving behind my eyelids, and I was following this square. And that really helped me to focus. Now, after just a couple of times, it wasn't comfortable to hold my breath. So then it just changed into in breath, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out breath, 1, 2, 3, 4. In breath, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out breath. And that became very sustainable. I could sit and just do that without a whole lot of, breath holding. And I can see why breath holding is important if you're doing it just 4 times and then you're done. But this is a class on mindfulness meditation. And, what Walt has given us here is a really good way when anger's starting to come up, when we're starting to feel violent or frustrated or very fearful, when we can't sleep at night, whatever it is, we can go to this practice and we can do it a few times, and then we can go back into whatever we were about. It's kind of just you get a flat tire in your car, you stop, you change the tire, you go on. It's that kind of a thing. And I'm suggesting also that this practice can be reinforced and made much more powerful by doing it intentionally as a sitting or laying down meditation practice. What do you think of that, Walt?
Absolutely. And this is artificial. You're breathing in this artificial way, this kind of unnatural way. And the purpose is slow down. But if you're already pretty calm, you don't have to be. It's best not to prolong this for very long and just go into whatever your natural breathing is, and you can be watching your natural breathing.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so let's say if I'm in a state of anger or agitation or frustration, my heart's going to be beating faster, isn't it? My blood pressure is going to be up. You know, I'm going to be, my temperature, I'm going to be warmer. We all know that when we get angry, we get warm, we get hot. That's even a name for anger. You know, the guy, "Ah, that guy's really hot. He's hot about this." Um, so that is a good way to just, if we're kind of on fire, to spray a little water on that and just calm that down so that we don't say or do something that we'll regret.
I just remembered another example of where this is used, and I hadn't thought about it until now. But I remember last fall on the sports page, there was an article just in passing. It was mentioning that the running back of the Badgers football team, after the signals were set and everything was ready to go, and he had to make up his mind where he was going to go, he breathed for a while. You know, he let his mind settle and he breathed for those, whatever it is, 3 seconds. This is the kind of situation where you want to be using that. I've got to settle myself. But in a meditation, there's much more than that. It's much more than just settling.
Right. Because in the moment, we may be really agitated. And we know that when we're upset, angry, fearful, whatever it is, we can't think clearly. I mean, scientists have shown this. The blood goes away from the part of your brain that's thinking clearly, and it goes into your body getting ready to fight or flee or run away or freeze. And so that it takes the energy away from the thinking mind. And by doing this kind of practice, this kind of breath practice that Walt learned from this incarcerated individual, by doing that kind of breath practice, it calms things down and allows that part of the brain that thinks, it allows it to have more energy so it can think more clearly.
Let me ask you a question, Stephen.
Yeah.
What is meditation then?
That's a really good question. I think there are many, many answers to that question, depending upon what kind of meditation you're doing. But not to dodge the question, it's going to involve coming into the present moment, the here and the now. What's happening in this moment, and not being carried away by thoughts, not being carried away by emotions, not being lost in reality, but coming back. Meditation is like coming home, coming back into the depths of the mind and the presence of the body in this very moment. I would say that most meditation practices, and I won't say all, but most, are focused on something like that, on getting a hold of this crazy mind that's running around and dragging us around, and saying, stop, slow down. And then once we're able to stop and slow down, then the wisdom mind begins to become, or what you call the true mind, begins to become more and more clear. And we can direct our lives out of the wisdom that we have, rather than constantly being pulled around by what we're thinking or by what's happening around us. How's that? Nobody ever asked me that before.
I bet.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that kind of brings us into the next little stage that we want to go into. So basically, Walt and I have been doing this many, many years. The two of us have been practicing meditation for decades, thousands and thousands of hours that we practice. And we come in and, we don't know where everybody's at who we're talking to in this circle. So we're trying to put out some practices and some teachings that will speak to different people at different stages of their practice or different times of their lives. But basically, what we have to work with these practices, what we're working with are three things. The body, everybody got one? The breath, everybody breathing? And the mind. The body, the breath, and the mind. If you put those three things together, you have you. You have a human being. And so what we're doing with mindfulness is we want to become more aware of what's happening right now in the body, in the breath, and in the mind. So we need the body to be relaxed and upright, and we need the mind to be alert. It's easy to be relaxed and have the mind just running. And it's easy to be alert and be very, very tense. And what we're looking for is a balance of a relaxed body and an alert mind. All right? So sometimes I talk about this is like building a house. So if we're going to build a house, we don't start building the second floor. We start with a foundation. We dig into the ground till we get a solid place, and we pour the basement walls. And once this foundation is solid, then we build the first floor with the doors and the windows and all that. And when that's solid, we can build the second floor. And this house can go way, way, way up. It can be really, really tall. And it can get really big and wide and have a lot of extra rooms. But fundamentally, we have to start with a foundation. So the foundation is the body. Okay? Everybody has a body. Every living thing has a body. A tree has a body. A fish has a body. Bodies, having a body is what's required to live on this planet. Okay? So when we come back into the body, we're letting go of living up here. And most of us think that this is where we live. And the reason is because we think that. Thinking takes place in the brain. Another reason we're up here is because this is where our eyes, our ears, our nose, and our mouth are. These are where most of our senses are right up here. So we tend to be here. Well, this next meditation will practice dropping down into the body and including the body with the mind. Okay? And then toward the end of our session, we'll go on a mindfulness of mind. So, shall we go into the next meditation, Walt? With the body and the breath and counting and so on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shall I lead?
Yeah, go ahead.
You've got the bell.
Okay.
We'll aim. I mean, this won't be a real long one,
Right.
and I'll be unlike a meditation. We encourage everyone to meditate every day. Get in the practice of it. Practice on your own, whatever way works for you. But we're doing very short ones as samples, and we hope that when you do it, you'll do it a little longer. But we'll do this as a sample, and I'll be talking a lot probably.
Right.
Sometimes a piece. I'll give you some piece, but not a lot.
So we don't want to sit here and say, now we're going to meditate in silence for a half an hour and we all just sit here. That wouldn't work. That wouldn't work too good here. So, okay. So the bell means we're starting the meditation practice, and it means we're ending it. Okay. So
you'll ring the bell once, one time.
One time.
So get into a position where you're comfortable, you're relaxed, you're alert, as Stephen said. And notice the body sensations. Notice your weight on the chair or whatever you're sitting on. Acknowledge any aches or pains. You don't have to glue on and dwell on them, but just notice that they're there. You're not running away from anything. Then move on to other parts of the body that are more neutral. And notice the constant motion of breathing. We're never sitting perfectly still. You might close your eyes if that's, otherwise just let them stare out. Try not to get too distracted by what you're seeing. But focus in on what you're feeling. The body, the movement of the breath. And right away, we're always very aware the mind will not sit still. It will not stay looking at one thing. And so a technique that I used for a long time when I was beginning to meditate was to count my breaths. So I just fill my mind with the numbers. 1 on the in-breath, 2 on the next in-breath, and 3, and then 4. And then I repeat over, start with 1, 2. And I keep it simple, but I want to kind of use this as a hook to hang my attention on when my mind is just so jumpy. I'm very kind to myself. So when I notice that my mind is now 100 miles away, or it's somewhere hours in the past or in the future, I don't make a big deal about it. I don't get upset. Don't kick myself. I just come back without any argument. Just come back, start over with number 1 again. Because I know that it's going to happen a lot. It's just, that's what meditation is. Often meditation is simply coming back again and again to what's happening right here and now. Now, sometimes the numbers aren't working so well. They get worn out. They get boring. So then I'll switch to very easy, simple words. And I like words that remind me of why I'm doing this. So on the in-breath, I'll say calm. Breathing in, I'm calm. Breathing out, at ease. Calm. At ease. You can pick your own words and have those words fill your mind in the same way that you are using the numbers. And those words might get worn out too. They might lose their punch. Then, new words. Release. Present moment. Release. Present moment. As the meditation goes on longer, we've kind of moved from the easiest numbers, the very simple words, to other words, but we don't make this into some kind of thought experiment of what words am I going to come up with. Just pick some. I'm okay right now. I'm okay right now.
So please just take a moment, if you will, and just notice. Notice the condition of your body. Notice the condition of your breath. And notice the mood or the space in the mind. And see how it feels after just this brief meditation and the other meditation we did. So you may have noticed that my faithful dog, Jack, walked in and laid down in his bed. And Jack's a good meditator. He's learned how to sit a long time ago and be still. The counting, according to what Jack tells me about it, is that counting is like throwing a dog a bone. So as Walt mentioned, the mind tends to be active. It tends to think on its own. Disconnected thoughts that we don't even know where they came from. And what the counting does, or the words do, is it gives the dog a bone. It gives the mind something to chew on for a while we're focusing the attention on the breath or on the body, whatever it is the focus of our attention. It gives the mind something to do. So we'll count, maybe at first we'll count kind of loud in our mind, but after a while the counting will fade into the background. And then you'll notice after a while the counting really isn't working. You're counting, but the mind is running along. And then we'll come back to the breath and the counting, and maybe we'll switch to make the counting louder now, or we'll switch to some of these words. And the point of this is to make it work for you. So whatever words you need, if you need relax, if you need focus, if you need love, bring in a word to give the mind, which is the dog, a bone, something to chew on while you're meditating. And this gives us some control over the activity of the mind. Most of us spend a lot of our lives, some people spend almost all of their lives being dragged along by situations, by circumstances on the outside, and by a wild mind that's constantly running around, thinking, doing all kinds of things that we're out of control of. And we really think that life is just about being out of control. We're living with this mind that's out of control. We're living in this environment that can be very wild and can be very difficult and very harmful. And that's just the way it is. And with meditation, we're teaching that it doesn't have to be that way. Definitely the mind thinks a lot, but we don't have to be a victim of our own thinking. And definitely things are coming at us from the world all the time, but we don't always have to be a victim of our circumstances, our situations. When we focus on our breath, focus on our body, we're becoming stronger. Our ability to concentrate is becoming stronger. Our ability to be in control of what's happening in our mind, in our body, and in our environment gets stronger. We learn when things don't feel right that we can pause and we can do this breathing practice that Walt brought to us, or some other practice. We can step up and say, this is not going the way I want it to go right now. There are many things I can't change, but right now, with this next in-breath, I can change my mood and I can change the direction my life is taking. And that's why we call this the path of freedom. When we realize that the mind does not control us, that our environment does not control us, that we can sit in the driver's seat, then we get to decide what we want to say, what we want to do, how we want to live. No matter what our history is, right now, we can step up and be the one in the driver's seat. What would you like to add to that, Walt?
Not very much. I think you said it well. This idea that this is the path of freedom. This is the path of, I can do anything to my body, but my mind is what's most important. And knowing my mind is key.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we have another 20 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. Are you keeping track of this?
Probably have less than that if we wanted to stay to
15, maybe 15. Okay, so we'll go
Yes.
into our final meditation. So as we talked about, the foundation is that the first thing is the body and the breath. We move up into the first floor, which is being aware that we have mindfulness, that we can focus the mind where we want. So let's go through this. Let's start. Come into your sitting meditation position or laying down. And let's always begin by taking a few deep breaths. And with every breath, you focus on the out breath and move the eyes downward, dropping our attention from the head down into the body, including the whole body. Dropping down, you can say relax. Breathing in, you can say alert if you want. So we can put our attention where we want it to be. But just as an example, let's put our attention on how it feels to sit here. The pressure of the body on the chair. We can feel our clothes touching our skin, maybe feel the air, maybe there's sounds that we can hear. We can focus our attention on feeling the body. We can focus our attention on the breath. We can feel the belly and the chest moving. We can feel the air coming and going. We can focus our attention on the breath. We can focus our attention on the body again. We're in charge of where our attention is. So with the next out breath, let's move our attention to the mind. The mind is a space. Focus our attention on the space of the mind. The space goes on forever in all directions. If you like, you can focus on the blue sky, how spacious it is, how big it is. This is the mind. Watching the blue sky mind. Feeling the body moving with the breath. Feeling the body sitting in the chair. Focusing on the blue sky mind. Now there's two parts to mindfulness. One is watching. We're watching the mind. We're watching the breath or feeling it. Watching the body, feeling the body. And the other part of mindfulness is intention. So what I mean, let's do a little experiment, please, if you would. In the blue sky of the mind, make there appear an apple. See the apple clearly. What does the apple feel like? What does it smell like? Bite into the apple. What does it taste like? What is the sound of the bite? Created this apple in our mind. Okay, and with the next out breath, let it disappear. Back to the blue sky mind. Watch the blue sky. We're watching to see if a thought appears. Watch the mind, the blue sky. You can drop into feeling the breath. You can drop into feeling the body. You can come back to watching the blue sky. It's everywhere. It's bright. It's beautiful. It's deep. If a thought comes up, if a thought suddenly appears, that's okay. Just say, a thought. You know that everything that appears in the mind disappears. Thoughts appear and disappear. Feelings appear and disappear. Whatever thought may come into the mind will disappear. You can bring your body to your mind to one of three places. You can bring your attention to the blue sky mind with the thought in it. You can bring it to the breath, bring it to the body. Watching. This is mindfulness. Watching, feeling the body. Watching, feeling the breath. Watching, feeling the space of the mind. Thoughts come and go, feelings come and go, but the watcher remains. We are not just our bodies. We are not just our breath. We are not just our mind. We are also the one who can control the attention and who can notice what's happening. Who is it who's watching? The one who's watching has been watching your whole life. This is the wisdom mind. Let's take a few more breaths. And slowly come back. Notice your breath. Notice the body sitting here. Notice the blue sky mind. The wisdom mind is here and is always here. What do you think, Walt? Do you call it the wisdom mind or something else?
Well, I like the word, the name true mind. It's my real self, the self that's deep down. People call it the subconscious or the higher mind. It's there. It's there. We often are oblivious of it, but it's where our truth is. And what's wonderful about this meditation, I was just going to say, what's wonderful about this meditation is that we start seeing more of our mind. We start understanding more of ourselves. And what's more important in life than to understand yourself?
Really? So let me tell just a little quick story about when I was a young man. When I was 21, I had my first baby with a woman who I've been with now for 50 years. When I had this baby, became a father, I made a vow to myself that I would be a good father. I would be kind and loving, and that I wouldn't be violent the way my father was sometimes. Um, and it was maybe a year and a half later when she was a toddler and running around and being bad, doing something. And I opened my mouth and I yelled at her, and my father's voice came out of my mouth. And suddenly I shut my mouth and said, whoa, wait a minute. What was that? That was my wisdom mind. That was my mindfulness that saw that somewhere deep inside, my father was still living, even though he died when I was a kid. He was still alive in me. And I had better pay attention if I'm going to be my own self and not just be a body for his voice. And that was one of my first experiences of mindfulness, where my big mind said, wait a minute, time out. Wait a minute can be the three most important words that we say to ourselves. Oh, something's happening. Wait a minute. Come back to the breath. Wait a minute. I don't like where this is going. Wait a minute. How many of us have times in our lives that we would give anything to go back and change, redo, go back and say, wait a minute, I'm going to do something else. I'm not going to do what I did. So that wait a minute, that's the wisdom mind. That's our mindfulness.
And just point out that this practice of meditation is a practice. So we do this intentionally, ideally every day, with a purpose. We're not just going through the motions here. I like to remind myself of why I'm sitting down before I sit down. But we're not simply becoming better meditators. We're developing an ability of our wisdom mind, or our true mind, that is closer to the surface during all of life. Then it's a little bit more accessible. It's a little bit powerful. It's got a little stronger voice to make itself heard amidst all the noise around. So this very practical stuff that we're talking about.
So does that mean you never get mad anymore? You're never afraid of anything anymore?
Well, I got mad back in 2018 once. No. No, that brings up that other thing. And that I noticed, and most guys in our group will say that, they start noticing a change pretty quickly. But it's a change. It's not perfection. There's perfection. These habits are so deeply ingrained. We're never gonna get that piece of chewing gum off the sole of our shoe. It's gonna be there. It's gonna be sticky. But we can get a little bit better at noticing when we're kind of falling into this habit a little bit more frequently. And I think that's the key thing. We're noticing some progress in a good direction.
Yeah, and it can make all the difference, can't it? I mean, it can make the difference between destroying a friendship or keeping it. It can make the difference between getting arrested and doing time in prison, or going a different way. That's the place where the difference really is made.
Remembering, though, that it's never perfection, that everyone always backslides. Everyone's got a trigger point that it's gonna hit. We just make that a little bit less frequent. And if something does happen, I mean, this is important too. If something happens and I really regret it, it's good to learn from our mistakes, but it's not good to beat up ourselves. Every day is a new day going forward.
All right. Thank you, Walt.
And thank you, Stephen.
Good to be here. And we'll be back. We'll be back to see you folks in this format for as long as we need to, until we're finally able to come back in. So we wish you well, be healthy, be kind, be strong, and support your loved ones, and keep practicing.
And my final word is you can handle it. You've handled everything so far. You can handle whatever's coming your way. We'll see you again.